Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Ideas About God and Other Things. My name is Fabian. I am one of your hosts.
And I'm Josh. I am the other host. Ideas About God is a podcast where we want to come together and have hopefully rich conversations about God, theology, ultimate reality, all that sort of stuff, and look at it through like the lens of pop culture and what's going on around us, and hopefully have conversations that are meaningful and hopefully give y'all at home something to chew on and think about and all that sort of good stuff.
Yeah. Please, before we continue, would you hit the plus button on Apple Podcasts or subscribe on Spotify? If you're watching on YouTube, then subscribe there. It's a great way to help more people find this podcast. If you find it enjoyable, then share it with your friends that might also enjoy it.
Tell your friends. Leave a 5-star review.
Yes.
Only 5 stars.
Only 5 stars.
Anything less than 5 is not enough. And we'll find you.
With glowing comments, please.
Glowing comments, lots of glowing comments. Tell us about how handsome we are, because we're insecure and we need that. All right. Well, shall we begin with what are we consuming? What are we consuming? What have I been consuming? That's a good question. So, all right, this is the dumbest thing ever, but I've been consuming it. All right, so... And I found this through another podcast, 1-900-HOT-DOG. If you're not easily offended and you think 1-900-HOT-DOG?
1-900?
1-900-HOT-DOG.
Okay.
There is a... Okay, so there is a podcast called the 1-900-HOT-DOG podcast. It's hosted by 2 comedy writers who used to work for a website called Cracked back in the day.
Yeah.
Cracked is still around. However, they're like owned by some conglomerate. But they used to be like this, like a really great like comedy website, like long format written articles. They put out like multiple a day.
Oh, interesting.
Like they were amazing. But 2 of these writers, the internet's Sean Baby and Robert Brockway, both when like they got bought out and they got like shuttered, they went off and started their own comedy website called 1-900-HOT-DOG. They also have a podcast called 1-900-HOT-DOG. They're one of their more recent episodes of the podcast, they talked about a show on Netflix called Forged in Knife or Death, Forged in Fire, or Forged in Fire, Knife or Death. I don't know. And it's a show about these people cutting things with knives. Like there's an obstacle course that you have to go through with a knife, and you bring this knife and you're like chopping your way through dowel rods and ropes.
What?
And the most absurd shit. It's like this show is modern, right?
Yeah.
Like I felt like, so like in the early aughts, there was like a rash of like reality TV shows where it felt like mean spirited, and it was like, look at these losers, like look how bad they suck at like things. And like we as a culture have kind of like moved, like it feels mean, you know, we kind of like it used to be like, you know, it used to be American Idol, and you'd have like, oh, let's look at all the bad singers, like from the first ones who flopped, and like Simon Cowell would just be a complete dick. Like those episodes aren't as popular anymore. I feel like we as a culture are like, oh man, like tone it down, you know, or I think we have. I feel like those aren't as popular as they used to be. This show is made now, and it has people who I would describe as, I don't know if sad is the right word. Like these men made, not just men, there's also women on there. These folks made knives or bought knives of dubious origin, and they showed up, and it's the weirdest thing ever. Like they have ADR, they have gold, like the wrestler, the WWE wrestler Goldberg. He's on there. He doesn't introduce himself as, hey, I'm former WWE All-Star Goldberg. No, he's like, hi, my name is Bill Goldberg. And he doesn't explain why he looks like a giant thumb in a suit next to another man. A man brings a katana, like he is a white man dressed in traditional Japanese, well, I'm guessing it's traditional Japanese, like samurai garb. And he's got a katana, and he's like, it's just the silly, it's silly, and it's kind of dumb. And I kind of feel bad saying like, I spent like a good part of last week watching all 6 episodes of this. But also like for every like dork on there, always been our dorks. Like for every like dorky person on there, there's also like someone you're cheering for. You're like, this man built a sword in his garage, and he's chopping his way through ice blocks and kicking ass. Like it's weird. And I was kind of into it. So that's what I've been consuming. And that's a weird diatribe. We should probably just cut all that.
So interesting. Oh man, that's great. So I since you talked about the podcast first, I actually thought about, I've been consuming a couple podcasts. One, they're both connected. They're on the same network. Last podcast on the left, they did this whole series on the whaling industry. Oh. Basically, one particular boat, the Essex, that it like got destroyed by a sperm whale that randomly attacked it. And then all these whalers were left on their boats that, like the boats that they go out to hunt the whale. They get off the main big boat. And they got lost at sea, and eventually it turned to cannibalism.
Jesus Christ!
So, but like, what's interesting about it is I did not know how much the whaling industry was crucial to the Industrial Revolution in America, and the reason that America was so advanced in a lot of its technology, and the reason we're honestly like where we're at today is because of how many freaking whales we killed.
Damn.
Like the whaling industry in the United States was so, it was savage, honestly.
Yeah.
But because we needed the blubber for both candles and, machinery and the Industrial Revolution. I did not know that the whaling industry was so crucial to basically the birth of America as a globally competitive economy, which is interesting. But they also have this other podcast that is connected to their network called Fraudsters, and I have to read the name of this person. I did not know that the person who helped start the Lou Pearlman was the man who was the guy who basically founded the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC.
Yes!
And I did not know how horrible of a human being he was, and how he was a con man, and how he there's all these allegations of him abusing these teenage boys when he was like I did not know how horrible of a human being he was.
Oh my gosh.
So I just discovered all the deets on Lou Pearlman through the a 3-part series they did. So that's been interesting. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was like, you said Lou Pearlman, I was like, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
No, I remember I heard a podcast, the American Hysteria. They have a really good podcast talking about boy bands, and they talked about the rise of boy bands starting off as with boys like Jackson 5 were the ultimate, and then kind of their evolution, and then they talk about Lou Pearlman and kind of his thing.
Dude, the man was gross.
Yeah, he's a real piece of shit.
He did some really horrible shit. So yeah. So that's what I've been enjoying lately.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so you had the idea for today's episode, and do you just want to jump into it?
Let's just get into it. Yeah.
All right, get it.
So the idea that I had texted Josh, I was actually at a Star Wars in concert thing, which you should go to one of those. If you're a fan of either Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, I think they've done the Black Panther. They do Harry Potter. Basically, it's they play a movie on a screen, but it's in a concert hall where an orchestra plays, and so the entire score of the movie, they somehow get a version of the movie where they strip all the score. Yeah. And they just play the score live.
So you still have voices.
Yeah, so you still have voices. The movie's still playing, but then an actual live orchestra is playing the score. It's really cool.
Is it too loud? I would be worried about.
No, it's the volume's great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
It's really powerful. And actually, the best part, if you do go into one of these, so many people left at the credits as if the movie was the thing they came to watch. You can watch the movie on your home TV. The cool part about it is when the credits were rolling, they just went off and played every single part of the movie, and it was this extra show that lasted 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And all these people had left the room.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you go to one of those, stay for the credits because it's the best part. But
wow.
I was at one of those, and I was thinking about our next episode, and I was like, oh, this is something where I'm in the minority on something, and we have to talk about this because there's so much ethical implications and sort of social implications and socio-political political things as well. So I loved the ending to Game of Thrones. I loved the last season. I was okay with all of it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the ride.
Right.
But a lot of people didn't. So you're the voice of some of the reasons
right.
people didn't like the ending. So please, for those who maybe haven't watched Game of Thrones, to say like spoilers, it's kind of hard on this one because it's such a long show.
Right.
So just, you're going to get spoilers and we're going to ruin it for you. So you don't care anymore. It's been so long, the Game of Thrones.
Yeah. It's you had your moment.
Yeah.
Oh no, you can go pause this and then go watch it and then come back to us in 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Are you kidding me? It's like
could
a
you
month.
Could you binge it?
I don't
2
know.
Weeks? Like
so
if you
long.
didn't sleep and just like start at season 1.
If you basically didn't go to work, didn't eat, didn't sleep, you probably could pull.
I think you do in 2 weeks. I don't know. Someone do the math and get back to us. So I think some of the criticisms of the last 2 seasons were that the pacing kind of felt off, right? So it used to be we would spend a whole season with characters traveling from like the north to the south, right? That would be the whole of like a season. We'd have a multi-arc thing. Whereas now we have like episode 1, a person is in the north. Episode 2, they're now in like the capital. And that kind of felt like, like I know like we need to move things around because, you know, we have like major plot events we're trying to lead up to. And in order to get to those plot events, we need to like cut out some of that travel time, you know, and I think that is one of the problems because that is the hallmark of writing a good script is like, or writing a good story is that things like the pacing stays the same. You're not like, oh, like I can tell that you're rushing things because you have like a big set piece to get to, right? That feels bad as an audience, right? Like you're like, oh wait, why did this character do this? Well, the reality is they did this so we could set up this big fight scene. When in reality, like that seems uncharacteristic for that choice that a character would make, right? And so I think that is one of the criticisms of that final season. It's like, oh, we're just like rushing around, and like all of a sudden, boom. And a part of that could be that these 2 directors who like, as a side note, really haven't gotten anything since Game of Thrones. Yeah. They've been like touted. They've been like, oh, like they've been attached to some projects, but none of those projects have fallen through. Like, and also these 2 guys had absolutely no experience before getting Game of Thrones. It seems like once they got past where George R.R. Martin is, they just like, they had, and we know like at some point they met and shared ideas about where the story was meant to go in the future, where Martin like planned his books to go. I think once they got those notes, they just didn't know how to like flesh them out in a way that like could like satisfy us in a way. And it could just be that they're bad writers. Like it could just be that they were just they're just like writing on top of George R.R. Martin, and then now everyone's like, I don't think they know what they're doing. And so like I know at one point they were supposed to get like a show about like the antebellum South, and this was right around like 2020, and everyone's like, this is a bad look. Like maybe we shouldn't celebrate like a time when people had slaves. That seems bad. And they're like, we should put that idea back in, just don't ever talk about that in public again. So yeah, like I don't know, these guys they're probably fine. They're probably fine dudes, but yeah, that was some of the criticisms that people have had towards like the last season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So basically the pacing, which to be honest, like I could see that, and I don't disagree with the fact that the pacing was off. One of the specific criticisms, and this is kind of the foundation of our ethical conversation we're going to dive into here, is that people felt like, and this was voiced, you know, in public spaces, that Daenerys changed really fast. Yeah. And that is where we're going to begin our conversation, because I actually disagree with that fact. And you agree with me on this. You can see kind of...
Yeah. Lay us out.
So basically, a lot of what Daenerys was doing, and we'll go back to the very, you know, beginning of she has this thing about her, and you're like, oh, she's like this innocent person, born from this royal family, but her entire family has been destroyed. Like she's outcast, exiled from her own homeland. Other people are ruling it. They're pretty awful. Like you hate, so basically the turn to burning the Red Keep was where people felt like it was really fast. She went from being this good person that wouldn't do something that evil
right.
to, in a moment, burning an entire city full of innocent people.
Yeah.
And the argument that I've heard other people say this, and so this isn't unique to me, I agree with them, is that she was doing that the whole time. Even in the very beginning, what she was doing was she was killing people that we easily hated.
Yeah.
But the moment that she turned that rage and anger to burn an entire city full of people that we've had an entire series worth, a long show's worth of relationships with.
Yeah.
We know some of the people there. Like we have these feelings about the people, and we know that it's nuanced. We know that it's not just black and white, that this entire city is full of bad people. The moment she does something, the same exact thing she's been doing the entire show, which is absolutely murdering her enemies with her dragons with no mercy, we get bothered and say that she changed.
Yeah.
And my argument is that she didn't change. She's been doing that the whole time.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Like, so I'm like, I think that yes, I would agree that is who, like, she reveals herself early. And I'm not saying that, like, it's wrong to feel excited and think like that's awesome when she has, like, her husband pour an entire pot of, like, liquid gold over her, like, molten gold over her brother. And we're not like, oh, it's fucking rad. Or when she burns the rest of the Dothraki chieftains alive.
Yeah.
In that,
that's true.
that
She
tent.
does.
And then walks out of the fire naked and unhurt, and you're just like, okay, that's cool as shit.
Yeah.
I don't. And then at the end, like, she turns, like, we get there when she turns evil, and I think, like, in better hands, that story could have been done better.
Yeah.
Like, it could have been, like, instead of, like, kill a person I hate, kill a person I hate, kill a person I hate, kill a person I love. Oh, it seems bad. Like, it'd have been like, kill a person I hate. Now this is more, like, complicated. Ooh, this is really sticky. It's really sticky. Oh, we've gone off a cliff.
Yeah.
I think under better hands, like, that progression, we could have been with it. And then, like, we would have found ourselves, like, agreeing with her, even as the story, even as, like, the situations in which she was making those choices got even more and more sticky and uncomfortable. And, like, we're agreeing with you, but we're like, man, like, maybe this is bad. And so we get to the point, we find ourselves like, she's gone too far.
Yeah.
We've been left behind, and we're like, oh, but we were with you this whole time. We are convicted in this. Like, we feel like, also bad. And I think in better hands, like, in better storytelling hands, like, other stories like could be told. And I know we talked about some of those before. But, like,
yeah. And see, like, that is what I actually, in terms of good or bad storytelling, like, good storytelling, I agree with you, takes you on a journey. The sharp turn in reflection for some people may have been a bad storytelling move. Yeah. And maybe it still is, because I'm not someone that, like, I don't review shows or, I don't get into the nitty gritty. I mostly consume. Like, I'm not the kind of person who, we talked about in our last episode. I don't go into all the background of Star Wars. I just watch the Star Wars movie, and that's fine with me. Like, I enjoy just watching. Outside of Breaking Bad, it's the only show that I've ever watched multiple times over, because I just want to know every single little bit of it, because it's an amazing show. Yeah. So the pacing may have been off, but what it did to us was it caused us to confront something very crucial for us to realize, that we are uncomfortable when we face the own ugliness of the things that we cheer for. And what that turn did with Daenerys is it caused us to realize, unless you just wanted to ignore it and say, well, that was bad plot making. Yeah. Oh, maybe it's problematic for us to demonize another group of people, even if they are quote unquote doing evil things, and to cheer for their destruction. And so okay, so we were gonna dive into other other things that have done this, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about around some ethics around this.
Yeah, well, I think in our conversation leading up to this, we talked about The Dark Knight. So Christopher Nolan's second Batman movie with Christian Bale. So at the end, in order to stop the Joker, who's like this ultimate threat, he hasn't fought anyone as scary as the Joker yet, right? He's like, oh man, he's like everything. He's like the anti-Batman. In order to fight him, he creates some sort of software that hacks every phone in Gotham City and turns into like a mini sonar, and he has a system set up and he gives it to Lucius Fox, played by Morgan Freeman, and he's like, here, give this to me, and I'm gonna need you to be like my HQ or whatever, and he's like gonna kind of like coach me around, and Lucius Fox is like this is like a huge breach in privacy, right? Like you have no one has volunteered to be a part of this. You have forcibly hacked all of their phones. You are collecting a shit ton of data on everyone in the city. Like this is, I don't want this power. No, this is too much. But like Batman's like, well, it's because you're the best of us, and I'm going to give you. That's my Batman voice.
That's actually pretty good.
Thank you. I practice while I drive. But he gives like the power, and he's like, well, that's why I'm giving it to you, because you don't want it. And somehow we're supposed to like come out of this encounter, and then of course Batman defeats Joker, and then because of the technology, and then Lucius Fox like destroys the computer console that has all the data on it, and we're supposed to be like, yeah, like that was good. It was good to violate a bunch of people's personal privacy. It was good to violate a whole bunch of people's civil rights so that we can stop the bad guy.
Yeah.
And this came out in 2008 while the United States was in the middle of its war on terror. Right? We have troops on the ground in Afghanistan. We have troops on the ground in Iraq.
Yeah.
We have leaks coming out from the NSA talking about how like they're tapping a whole bunch of citizens' private data. And even I think even more so, kind of like even going forward, like none of us has stopped.
Yeah.
Like the Patriot Act's still in the books, right?
None of us
like and if anything, we're giving over more information, because as we've gotten more and more dependent upon like mobile devices, and we're signing over more and more of our data away to now private companies, not just, governments. And we've just accepted it because, well, that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Like it was better for us to live, and so in a sense, like this film comes across as a way, and I don't think this is intentional, because I actually think Christopher Nolan believes this.
Yeah.
Like I think that's who he is as a filmmaker. Is that it was good for us to give away our privacy to organizations in the name of
finding terrorists.
Yeah, fighting terrorists.
Yeah.
In the name of like certainty, in the name of security, in the name of all those things, right? I generally think that's what Christopher Nolan is arguing for. But like I remember watching that and just kind of feeling icky, because I'm just like, wait, am I supposed to like feel good for like, might be like, W and Dick Cheney, like we're on the right with the whole Patriot Act, like, and that's I don't think that's not quite the same thing, but like it's another example of us getting us to buy into, whether the author intended it, the creators intended it or not, getting us to buy into a story and then finding ourselves and be like, oh wait, we're agreeing with positions that we might morally or ethically otherwise not.
Yeah. Just because it's not actually affecting us. So we think about torture, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe we're comfortable with, if we are holding terrorists in Guantanamo Bay, terrorists.
Yeah.
And we need information out of them, we might be more comfortable with more extreme levels of torture.
Yeah.
But if we hear that Russia is doing that to prisoners they have of ours to try to get information out of them, well, it's like, no, that's too far.
Yeah.
Like we can do that,
yes,
because it benefits us and it creates safety for us, but it's inhumane, it's unethical, it's problematic if they're doing it to others or to our own people, you know? And so basically what this calls into question is creating an enemy and then removing the humanity from them.
Yeah.
Might lead us to be okay with certain things that we wouldn't be okay with otherwise. And another pop culture example, for those of you that have watched Black Mirror, there's one episode, I forget the name of the episode, but they have these soldiers where they basically put implants into their, into their brain so that when they're out in war, they'll see like a HUD, basically like what you'd see in a video game. Kind of dope, right? Like,
right, yeah.
Pretty cool.
That's cool.
But another thing that it did is there was this one soldier that started having a malfunction, and what their task was to do was to kill these, what they called roaches, which were these like mutated humans that look like monsters. And as his is malfunctioning, he realizes what they're actually killing are normal people. And he decides to not kill this mother and son because he realizes like these aren't mutants. They're normal human beings, and we're slaughtering them. And so basically in the implants, they made it so that the quote unquote enemy would look like a monster, so that the soldiers would be, more prone to just kill them. And so basically we got into this ethical conversation, and we actually might land in different places. And so I think this might be interesting. It's like, what do you do when there are people doing things that are wrong in the world? But then at the very same time, how do you resist being the very thing that you hate, or even being like them to stop what they're doing?
Yeah. I don't know. I think so. I used to be like, find myself in like, and I would probably describe myself as like a pacifist. And I think there's a lot in that, right? In this whole idea of like nonviolence. I don't know if I still hold on to that belief. I still think like it is a good tactic, but I don't know if it's like the way.
Yeah.
I think it is a way to achieve social change, but I don't know if it is the way. I think about in relationships, when someone is being a jerk in a relationship, you call them out on that, right? And you're like, hey man, like what you said was really hurtful towards them, like towards this person. Like, here's why that's bad. Here's Aaron's conversation. I listened to a podcast the other day and talking about like the difference between like a political opponent and a political enemy. A political opponent is someone you work with, right? There's a shared agreement that we work for our community or on a legislative or whatever type level. And we might have different opinions about how best to do X thing for our community. We might have the best of what does it mean to deliver the best good for our community.
Yeah.
And you might think it comes through cutting taxes, and I think it comes through like funding our schools, right? We have different ideas on how that works. But at the end of the day is like we both have this idea of we both want what is best for our community.
Yeah.
Political enemy is someone who's like, oh, like I'm going to destroy this whole system.
Yeah.
Right? Like fuck your democracy. Like I'm just going to burn all down, and then I'm going to take this with me. Right?
Yeah.
It's like you that a political, when you see someone as a political opponent, you're like, or a political enemy, it's like we're not playing the same game.
Yeah.
We are fighting. And if I have to break the rules of democracy in order to do so, we will. And so there's that difference, and I think that's might be a little bit crude. But
so somebody that would decide to basically destroy the rules of engagement or destroy the battlefield for the sake of winning, rather than somebody that will engage. It's like the person that if you're playing a board game with them, that they will decide to try to beat you through playing the game, rather than ending the game by flipping the board,
right,
and walking away. Right, you're never going to play a game.
Yeah.
Or maybe like another example would be if you play video games with someone that tries to beat you through their own skill, rather than using, like if you're playing a shooting game, like a bot to try to beat you. Right. Somebody that just breaks the rules of engagement.
Right.
And see, I'm at the place where I value your voice, and I think this is actually something that I've learned a lot from you. And because for a large part of my life, and I would still say I'm there. Maybe I'm like at the margin now where I'm open to changing my mind.
Yeah.
But I've been a pacifist my whole life because the only way I can see to break the cycle of violence is nonviolence.
Yeah.
I don't see another way. And if you go back into history and you explore sort of the relationship between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and I'm not saying that we are those two men, but we represent sides. Malcolm X was definitely more extreme in his views, probably more anarchist. And as we know, Martin Luther King, for most of his life, was preached nonviolence, at least nonviolence as a tool for social change for the particular things.
Right.
But if you dive a little bit deeper into their history, you realize that they actually talked to each other quite a bit.
Yeah.
And they moved both of their needles closer to the middle.
Right.
To where by the end of his life, Martin Luther King was a little bit more open to having weapons. Like Malcolm X gave the Black Panthers, like they had weapons, right? They weaponized themselves to protect their neighborhoods versus Martin Luther King, nonviolence. And so I think it's an interesting thing. And maybe there's not a clean answer to this, but what do you think about some of those things that I just said?
The thing that comes to mind for me is contextuality.
Yeah.
Right. So context matters as to whether or not I believe violence is necessary.
Yeah.
So like if you are getting assaulted, like I think you should have the right, take care of yourself, make sure you go home at the end of the day. If you are a person who is routinely discriminated against, right? So like the Black Panthers, right?
Yeah.
Like they had communities, their neighborhoods were routinely getting policed harsher than others, right? Cops would come through and just fuck with people. And so the Black Panthers rolled around with weapons and followed cops and were like, you're not going to fuck with our people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
You don't fuck with us. Right. We keep us safe. That would not have worked if they were unarmed.
Yeah.
Right. They themselves probably would have been assaulted and harassed by police. If you are say you're a trans woman, right? And like in a lot of parts of especially where we live, like it is not safe for you.
Yeah.
It is not safe for you to be in certain parts of the cities we live in. And you're like, I feel like, and I'm not like saying you need to own a firearm as for like a fear totem, but I'm like, if you're like, you've trained and you've done your stuff and like, you're like, I feel safe with a weapon in my purse. I'm not going to tell you not to carry that thing. Like if you want, like if you're like tired of someone fucking with you just because you're trying to go to the bathroom that you feel you deserve to be in, like, yeah, like do what you got to do, but for me as a straight white man, like I don't feel those sorts of pressures on me to exist, right? No one is saying like you should die because of who you are. Like you're like, no one looks at me and says you're an abomination before God, right? Like the only one who does that is like my low self-esteem, like left over from like my evangelist days. Like no one does that to me, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so I feel safe. But if you don't feel safe and you feel like you need to carry something, like, so that's where I think context matters, is like you have to make the best choice for you and the people around you in that moment and do your best. And so in that case, that's why I can't be a pacifist, because like maybe nonviolence works in some situations, but it doesn't work in others, like, I don't know. And that's where I'm at, is like, like, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to take that option off the table for people who feel like they have to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to come back around to this idea of creating an enemy who's the other, and kind of like just to come back to this, I think there is a when, in political discourse or in like that sort of like conversation where you're like, oh, like they are the enemy, they're the other, right? You've dehumanized them, right?
Yeah.
Like we were talking about, like Pierre Rollins talks about how like once you get to a point where like you are in conflict, is like war is actually the end of conflict, because you are no longer seeking to resolve the conflict. You are actually just eliminating the enemy, which doesn't actually fix the conflict. The conflict, like the technically is still there, but like you've just eliminated the opposition. And I think there is a way and I believe there is a way to be in conflict with people, but also hold them accountable. Right. So like for me, let's say I have a friend of mine who says something really homophobic. I can call you out on that. Not you, but like I can call out another human being for being homophobic and be like, hey man, that's not okay. And be like, here's why, boom, boom, boom. Someone who is like, you know, queer or something like that, or gay or something like that, like maybe they don't feel safe to have that conversation. I do, because I'm like a straight guy. No one's gonna say shit to me, right? Like no one's gonna come after me for that. And so like to have that, to hold people accountable, right? And so like holding someone accountable is acknowledging their humanity. Yeah. Right. There's like Brene Brown talks about like assume that everyone is doing their best. Yeah. Right. So when your racist uncle says something, that unfortunately is their best. Yeah. And so and so on one hand, like, oh man, that really sucks. But like also like you can hold them accountable and be like, hey man, we need to work on this. And so that allows, I think that and I don't know, and this is all like, I'm talking strictly interpersonal. Like I'm not talking about like, I have no answers for when it comes to like nation states aggressing against nation states. I don't know. Right. Like I am a dumb person. I don't know. But like when it comes to like interpersonal relationships, right. That's what it's about. It's like, I can acknowledge your humanity, but also hold you accountable and be like, hey, what you said was not okay. What you did was not okay. And I love you and I see you, but because I see you, I see what the hurt you've done to other people, and we need to work to make amends to that. And that to me is not the eradication of an enemy. That is the acknowledgement of like, you are with, like, we are in the same space. We are a community, whether we like it or not. We got to make this right. And that to me is like what, so at a certain point, to me, it feels like it transcends the question of violence versus nonviolence. Yeah. It's a question of like, just holding people accountable and taking care of those around you.
Yeah, that's wonderful, man.
I don't know. That was a long.
No, that was good. I mean, the only thing I can think about to tie it back to Game of Thrones is, I think what that did was, one little element I would add to everything you said is we also have to recognize the ugliness within ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I'm someone that has really wrestled with this idea in Christianity that we are sinful people, and sort of the overemphasis on our sinfulness in certain Christian traditions. Yeah. And I've come back around, considering things like racism, homophobia, sexism, ableism, how we participate in systems that shame bigger bodies, and how much we're harming the planet. And I think at some point there's this both and of we are not inherently bad. I think, as the sort of traditions say that we are, like the Calvinist tradition, that total depravity kind of stuff. Right. And also at the same time, we can't ignore the fact that we do participate in harm. Yeah. And I think that's what that Game of Thrones episode, or I guess that last season did in Daenerys' turn, is to remind us that, hey, your sort of penchant for violence turned against what's easily defined as other and non-human or less than human is problematic. And you were confronted with that. And so, that's kind of where I'm at. So I would echo everything you said, because you hit the nail on the head, and add that little piece of, we also sometimes have to recognize our own, the ways we participate. Yeah.
And I think that just comes back to being a part of a community and having people around you who will like hold you accountable to that, and be like, and I know like a lot of these things we're talking about are not interpersonal sins, right? Like when I don't recycle, right, I'm not explicitly hurting a person as if I if I were to I don't know, say something hurtful to a friend or a loved one, right? Like that, I explicitly hurt someone, but I didn't but having people around you and be like, hey, maybe you could recycle, maybe use a little less water, You know, like, I don't know, just like, but I think it comes down to like that sort of like relational, like people around you who are like going to call you on your junk and help you like be better.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
That's good. We had no conclusion planned, and
We had no conclusion
that felt
planned.
pretty good.
Yeah.
So let's go to wrap it up with some what's jazzing us up.
What's hyping you up? What the hype zone?
Honestly, I feel like we're in the same place. I'm just gonna name it. We're located in Kansas City, and we just won the Super Bowl. So yeah, so we're feeling good.
Yeah,
Pat Mahomes is 2, so
Mahomes.
he's up there, man. He's up there. I'd say at least top 5 quarterbacks.
Easy.
Already. It's crazy.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk sports. I think we're watching the Michael Jordan of football.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, we've had greats before. Like, we've had really good
We've
players
watched Tom
before.
Brady our whole life.
We've watched Tom Brady. We've watched incredible athletes. But we're watching, like, something... And maybe it's a little bit easier to get away with, like having being a true superstar in football or basketball because there's only 5 of you on the court at a time, and so it's easier. Like, whereas like football, you have like 11. But like we're watching like this man do things that like everyone's like, wait, you can do that as a quarterback?
Yeah,
you're gonna throw some sidearms? What? And I mean, we're watching a sports legend. Like we're gonna be in retirement homes. Just watching ESPN 30 for 30s on this man.
It's wild.
It's going to be wild.
Yeah, you're watching somebody that can break all kinds of metrics because the thing that Brady had, and credit to him, and sort of we're going to see Mahomes the end of his career. In the GOAT debates in basketball, it's LeBron or MJ. LeBron has the longevity, and MJ had just this insane ability to get points.
Yeah.
Like he could just get buckets at will whenever he wanted. And LeBron could do that.
Yeah.
But he always has had that selfless bent to him to pass, to bring his teammates along. And I think that's caused some of his longevity too.
Yeah.
I think at the end of Mahomes' career, we could look back at it and say, okay, we have this GOAT debate and Tom Brady is like the LeBron and Mahomes as like the Jordan, because there's just that edge about Mahomes. There's that sort of, he does things physically that he has. It's the matching of talent.
Yeah.
So far with the wins.
Yeah.
Versus Tom Brady, he maybe didn't have the physical talent.
Right.
He had the coaching early in his career.
Yep.
I mean, Tom Brady has had that sort of like killer instinct, and maybe that is also a Jordan
did you see
thing,
that man run a 40?
Yeah.
Like, did you watch his combine?
Like, he's physically not.
You're just like,
not gifted.
You're an athlete?
But I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it's been fun. So I don't know if you have anything else, but I figured that would transcend both of our.
I think we're getting jazzed. That's our hype zone.
Yeah,
there we go.
Hype zone.
Hype zone. Pat Mahomes.
Travis Kelce.
Come on the podcast.
All of it.
Or
Isaiah Pacheco too, man. Whew.
What? Yes.
That man's awesome. So.
He's so cool.
Cool. All right.
That's
that was good.
Episode. We did it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining. We will see you on the next one.
See you. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.